So hello and welcome, and thank you so much for joining me for today's seminar. And of course we're going to be talking about how to debunk the unexplained infertility myth, and more broadly, how to reclaim your fertility when you do receive a diagnosis like this or something similar. So tonight we'll be discussing some things that aren't generally spoken about in the area of fertility. So I think you're going to find this very interesting, very enlightening, but hopefully full of hope, full of positivity, and that by the end of it you will feel a sense of joyful expectation and can leave a lot of the fear that you've been feeling behind. So the truth about unexplained infertility. There's three things in this arena that I think need to be looked at. And the first is that an unexplained infertility diagnosis is a truth. Well, in my mind, it's not. An unexplained infertility diagnosis is an opinion. And basically, for most people when they receive it, it's a confusing opinion, and it doesn't really mean anything because it doesn't give you any answers. Nobody has given you any concrete answers as to why there's been a delay to pregnancy. The next thing is that people feel they cannot uncover what the problem is. And today I'm going to show you that with the right tools, methodology, you actually can discover exactly why there's been a delay to pregnancy. And the third is that people feel that fertility, a fertility challenge, a fertility issue, and particularly unexplained infertility because it's so confusing, is something that they don't have any control over. Well, what I want to share with you today is that is also not true, because this is your body, this is your mind, and you have total control over what happens in your mind, how you think, and what happens in your body through what you eat, what you put on your body, and how you treat your body. So this unexplained infertility is a myth that we need to, in a way, shatter, let go of. But before we go there, I just want to tell you quickly a little bit about me, why I did this work, and who I am. So I founded Reclaim Your Fertility actually last year, but this is after a couple of decades of assisting women and their partners who've had fertility challenges to actually overcome them. And I started that in my massage practice back in Sydney in Australia, where we would see clients for all sorts of reasons, but we actually attracted a lot of people without even putting it out there, we attracted an extraordinary amount of women who ended up coming to us to open their bodies to pregnancy. I've also run a lot of detox healing retreats, and a couple of years ago I launched a product called The Proper, and that was specifically, it's a product that helps people overcome bowel issues. My very big interest in life is health and well-being overall, and longevity, healthy longevity. And after a lifetime as a massage therapist, really doing a lot of work around healing my own body and helping clients, I've more recently come to hypnotherapy to help people, and I'm loving how working with the mind actually can help us overcome so much, including fertility issues. So my sort of life's work is looking at well-being, how our thoughts and our expectations around our health actually affect our life journey. And I've had my own journey of many years of unwellness that have led me to an understanding of how diet, thoughts, foods, meditation, massage, and expectation actually impact our health and well-being. And 15 years ago, my sister went on a journey to become pregnant that didn't work out at the time as she would have liked, and that actually led me more consciously into working with fertility, and I'll get to that very quickly. So just quickly, why I created Reclaim Your Fertility is that through working with clients over many years, I've just observed some very interesting things. And number one is that women in particular just become very helpless and lose hope very quickly in the journey. Not their fault, but you know, the world around us, the environment around us actually facilitates that. Also that people think they have no control over their ability to conceive and have a child, and this to me is not a truth at all. If we have control over anything, as I already said, it's our thoughts, it's our mind, and certainly it's our body. I've also observed with friends, with colleagues, with clients, even with family, that people are pushed into assisted reproductive technologies very quickly and very early on in their journey, and I find that very concerning. And then what happens from there is that the leap from trying with your partner or your donor for a while to IVF becomes very narrow, it becomes very small, and ultimately people don't know that there are other possibilities before going there. And the other thing I've observed, which is interesting, is that fertility is seen as something that's almost like separate. It's outside of general health. And again, no one's fault, but I think it's a follow-on from how the conventional medical system treats us, and that, you know, unwellness in different parts of the body is seen in isolation, and certainly more often than not they're looking at symptoms rather than causes. And my journey is to really let people see that fertility is something that's part of their overall health. In fact, that's where the healing is, and that's part of my mission. Now, the World Health Organization actually describes infertility as, quote, a disease of the reproductive system defined by the failure to achieve a clinical pregnancy after 12 months or more of regular unprotected intercourse. I actually, through my work, do not agree with that at all, because what I've discovered is a lot of people are not conceiving, not creating their families, and it has less to do with the body and more to do with the mind, but we'll get to that shortly. And something else that I've learned quite recently is that it's predicted that within 10 years, and this is the medical profession in Australia speaking, that 50% of Australian babies will be born through IVF. Now, again, I've nothing against IVF, but I think this is a concerning statistic for us as human beings, and also for the planet, and how unsustainable that statistic would seem to me. So the people I normally work with are people who've received unexplained infertility diagnoses, or indeed any infertility diagnoses, those who've been attempting to become pregnant for months or years, people who've experienced primary or secondary infertility, and interestingly, about 12% of women experience secondary infertility. There's also those who are concerned about age. Generally, and particularly in the Western world, we are getting married and choosing to have children later in life. Nothing wrong with that, but it brings just quite overwhelming concerns around age. I also work with people who've experienced unsuccessful IVF or other fertility treatments. I haven't worked with too many people who've just starting out in their pregnancy journey, but I would like to actually show people how to prepare their bodies and their minds so they can actually conceive the first time round, so they actually prepare for that. And it's, you know, there's no more trying. There's actually, you just do the work to conceive, and it happens on the first or second go. Also working with those in same-sex relationships, and also with people who, you know, essentially it may look like the fertility problem lies with the partner, but as I'm going to show you, when it comes to creating a baby, it is paramount to actually create the right conditions in the woman's body to conceive easily and carry a baby full term. So tonight we're going to talk about how to overcome an unexplained infertility challenge, why it's vital to spend time. I believe at least 6 weeks, maybe longer, it could be 2 months, 3 months, so that you can conceive first time round or indeed this time round. And how and why preparing your womb and your body is so critical, so that you can conceive and carry your baby easily. Later in the evening, I'll be showing the sexual position that you should be using to effectively conceive, and that is some knowledge that is not generally known and we need to reclaim. So I won't be sharing the usual information about fertility. Most people, when they come to me, they know all that stuff already. So that's readily available elsewhere. So tonight this is all about new information, new ideas, and new concepts. So as I touched upon already, there is a massive problem with an infertility diagnosis, but especially with an unexplained infertility diagnosis. The first thing is that the symptom is a delay to becoming pregnant. It's also that diagnosis is an opinion. It's not a truth, a fact, an absolute. Not at all. It's an opinion. And the worrying thing about it is that it really is an unintentional form of medical sorcery. The doctor doesn't know they're doing this. They're not aware of how they're affecting your mind or your emotions. If they did, they might take a different approach. However, when somebody receives an unexplained infertility diagnosis or an infertility diagnosis from somebody in a position of medical authority, it is very, very hard for you emotionally and mentally to overcome that. And the other thing that I think is interesting is if you went to a different type of practitioner, a traditional medicine practitioner, a naturopath, herbalist, homeopath, an Ayurvedic doctor, you probably wouldn't receive that diagnosis, and they would look for the cause. They would be looking to find the root cause and the reason that to date you have not conceived or indeed carried your baby healthily to full term. So receiving this opinion, because of how the mind works, is actually very problematic, because we can end up having what is known as the nocebo effect, totally opposite to the placebo effect. So what I want you to consider is, just because you haven't become pregnant within a certain time frame, it doesn't mean that your body is infertile. This is an opinion, because your fertility specialist or your doctor cannot find a medical reason or explanation within their narrow paradigm that to date you have not become pregnant. Yes, it's obvious there's a fertility challenge, but it's really important to not let that diagnosis define you, because through my own work and all the research that I've done, I can see that with the right proven approach, the right preparation approach, you can positively impact and in fact reclaim your fertile health. And you can do that indeed quite quickly. You know, most of us came into the world as fertile beings, and we can reclaim our fertility. And also from what I've seen is there's this idea that often people are given an infertility diagnosis and end up having a miracle baby. To me, there's no such thing as a miracle baby. There's a mistaken diagnosis or a wrong opinion. So, what I want you to understand tonight is the danger in accepting an infertility diagnosis, the danger in actually believing I am infertile, is that you are literally telling your mind that you're infertile. And your mind's job is to believe everything you think and everything you say. So straight away it becomes a very damaging, limiting belief. And the sad thing is that it doesn't even matter if the diagnosis is true or false. What actually matters is if you believe it's true, is if you take it on. Because first we make our beliefs, and then our beliefs make us. And to illustrate that point, just want to quickly tell you about a British Medical Journal study that was published, and they took a group of women who had had difficulty conceiving. And half the group were thought to change their beliefs, to replace negative thoughts about their chances of getting pregnant with a positive belief that they would get pregnant. Now, half of that group became pregnant, and this was in sharp contrast to the control group, where 1 in 5 became pregnant. So, hear this. Changing a negative belief to a positive belief can affect your chances of becoming pregnant by 20 to 50%, doing nothing else except changing your belief. Now, of course, I know there may be real concerns. Your age, your health, your lifestyle, and stress is a very, very big, very real factor when it comes to fertility, and we'll be giving that a lot of attention later on. You might have been trying for a very long time, which starts to really affect your positivity. Of course it does. You may have tried other fertility treatments. You may even have experienced the loss of a pregnancy, all real concerns. There may also be issues around the health of your reproductive organs. And so many women, as we know, are suffering from PCOS, endometriosis, fibroids, and other conditions affecting the reproductive organs. However, these conditions in and of themselves do not necessarily imply infertility. And in fact, some of the information I'll be sharing with you later can actually positively impact these conditions. So you can overcome them and you can heal them. But even if you have them, it doesn't mean that you are infertile. Now, quickly, I just want to share with you a case study, and this is of Kira. And as it happened, Kira was a turning point in my fertility sort of journey, and that's because she is my sister. So 15 years ago, Kira and her husband, my brother-in-law, decided that they wanted to have their family. They weren't long into their journey. It was just a matter of months, and they were given the diagnosis of unexplained infertility, and they were encouraged that the next and best step, because of age, would be for them to go down the IVF route. And so they followed that advice, and for the next 5 years, she endured 5 failed IVF cycles, all of which had a very detrimental emotional effect, and she struggled with the whole process physically as well. Now, this is a little bit before the time of, how easy it is for us to communicate today. We didn't have Facebook or Skype even, or, a lot of these instant communication technology that we have today. So a lot of this, I was hearing in bits and pieces and secondhand, but ironically at the same time I'm in Australia and just happily and easily helping all sorts of clients and women to become pregnant, literally through massage alone. So I came back for a holiday, and I asked if I could work with her. She was open to that, so we started what I call doing to conceive, and a lot of what I did with her was massage work just on the belly, the abdomen, and also work around getting her to reject that diagnosis, which never actually sat well with me when I heard about it. I felt quite confused about it, because to me she was young and I couldn't understand why she was on this journey at all. She was young to me and she was healthy. Anyway, soon after I left, she became pregnant, actually the first time through IVF, and that pregnancy ended at 10 weeks. But I got her to go to another massage therapist in Ireland, and to really understand now that she could become pregnant. And that was a big thing. So, even though it was through IVF, she could now understand that her body could conceive. And that was a big, big breakthrough. And because of that, she became pregnant naturally a couple of months later. And now we have this incredible 10-year-old boy in our life who's just, fascinating human being, and we're delighted, of course, to have him. But the point is, Kira was never infertile, and nor was she too old. She needed the massage help to bring energy to her reproductive system, but she also needed some hope. She needed a positive mindset after the relentless years of trying and really losing hope. She needed hope, and she needed encouragement that she and her body and her husband, they could all do this. So that leads me to really the kind of work that I did with Kira, which is starting what I call spring cleaning the baby's first room. So quite obviously the baby's first room is your womb and your abdomen. But in our culture, Western culture, we've forgotten the importance of creating the most inviting, the most sustaining, the most nurturing environment for a baby to conceive, live and grow in for 9 months. Now, if we look to ancient cultures, Mexicans, Mayans, Koreans, Chinese, but so many other cultures, they would have all employed some sort of body work or cleansing practice, some fertility practice that was handed down from generation to generation, mother to daughter, so that the likelihood of conceiving and having a healthy pregnancy and a baby was there for them. So this is one of the first things that I do with somebody who's come with an infertility diagnosis, or indeed age concerns, or to reclaim their uterine health, and that is to spring clean the abdomen and the uterus. And this, to me makes total sense. We have this body that, we've been eating a lot of the wrong foods, not really drinking enough water. We have an organ that we haven't really given much attention to for years, sometimes decades. And the whole area needs a clean out, and it needs to be brought back to life. And so the massage and the cleansing practices are amazing because they bring blood flow, fresh oxygen and nutrient to the reproductive organs, life force to the ovaries, life force to the eggs. They physically prepare the womb and the abdomen for a baby to live and grow there because they release tension, they break up scar tissue, and they help to loosen ligaments. And the other thing they do, which for me is critically important, is detox the colon and the surrounding organs and the reproductive system itself so that you have this cleansed environment. And some of these practices can also help to reposition your organs to their correct alignment, which is not only good for your organs, but again, one of the organs that often gets tilted or out of alignment is the uterus, so it can be really excellent for that as well. And I just want to give you a bit of an analogy. If you were inviting a friend over for the weekend to stay with you, what would you do? You'd prepare your spare room for them. So you'd go in, you'd put fresh sheets on the bed, you might give the room an airing, you might put some essential oils burning in there for them, put on some music, put in a beautiful fresh bouquet of flowers, and they come for the weekend, they feel fantastic, they feel welcome, they feel happy to be there, they feel that you've just gone out of their way to make them so welcome. Our babies will live in their first room for 9 months, and yet the art and the culture of preparing that room has all but been lost to us. And for me, it's a very critical component in changing the environment so people can conceive easily, and also that they go on to have a healthy full-term pregnancy. And to give you more of a visual on that, what I want you to see here is that, here's the reproductive system sitting in the bottom of the pelvic bowl, and it's really been sitting there, if you like. I see it sort of sitting there in the dark and not been given much attention. And at the same time, we have the small intestine, the large intestine, all the organs of the body weighing down on this, at this point, quite small organ. And what happens? It doesn't get any energy. It doesn't get any life force. And we need to do this work to bring your womb back to life. And it needs water. It needs oxygen. It needs energy, it needs attention, it needs circulation, it needs blood, it even needs exercise. And another analogy is, for example, here's my hand, my left hand. If I didn't use this hand for 6 months, what would happen? It would start to atrophy, it wouldn't have any energy going through it, the muscles would start to waste away, it would start to become hard for me to open it up, it would become unusable because I'm not using it. And, we see that if you break a leg or break an arm, once it heals itself, then you've got to do the journey of building up the muscles again and getting circulation there. And it's the same with the reproductive system. We need to bring life back to it. So circulation, water, energy, oxygen, all of which, is circulating in your body, but needs more attention to make it happen. So these practices, these simple practices, in my mind, are the most effective way for you literally to prepare your baby's first room, so that you can spend time, really creating this optimal environment for your partners or donors' seed to implant and grow. And we do this through massage, we do it through detoxing protocols. Water is vital. When the body is dehydrated, the first organ to suffer will be the reproductive organs, because they're not vital to your survival. So, when the body is dehydrated, obviously the brain, the lungs, the heart, they all need water to keep functioning. But the reproductive system, that's the one that's going to be, in a way, left behind. So we need water to create life, and, you know, just even to prepare your body to conceive and grow. I mean, we need water for the cervical mucus, we need water for the amniotic fluid, we need water to create this baby of ours. In fact, when a baby is being created, they're over 80 or 90% water, so it's critical that you're drinking water, you're drinking plenty of it, at least 2 liters a day, with a pinch of salt. I'll explain why later. And that you're drinking good water. If you can, invest in some sort of filter system so that you are drinking pure, clean water. The other thing is we need live foods. Live foods are paramount for the whole of your body, but obviously for your digestive system as well. It's from there we get nutrients, but also the fiber that actually cleans out the digestive system, which again is sitting on top of your reproductive system, so we need it to be clean. Now, when you do these practices, you find that conception just happens so much easier. You're confident of having a full-term healthy pregnancy because you've created the environment for that, and you're confident that your baby will be perfect and healthy because, again, you've created the environment for that. So I believe this is for everybody who's on the journey to conceive, to having a baby. And whether you're just at the beginning of that journey, or you've had delays, you've had an infertility diagnosis, an unexplained infertility diagnosis, this is super, super important. And also exceptionally important if we're older, when we tend to be even more dehydrated, as it happens, or have more toxins, more to undo, just because we've been around for that bit longer. So, yes, these practices are really fertility solutions, and once you do them, you can conceive a lot quicker than you would if you didn't do them. So the preparation is critically important. And this leads me to something that's very close to my heart, and it's one of the first things I get all the clients I work with to do, and that's to start going to the bathroom properly. Your colon, your digestive system needs to be clean, not only for your health, but absolutely for the health of your developing baby. Now, what has actually happened is that in the Western world, we are doing it all wrong. We were never designed to sit on a seat to release, and it is causing phenomenal problems in the Western world in particular. So, constipation, irritable bowel, Crohn's disease, colon cancer, SIBO, all of these conditions that are so, just seem to be becoming more widespread every single day, they are not really happening. There's a very low incidence of bowel-related issues in the 2/3 of the world where people still squat to release. And this is a really important area when it comes to fertility. And in fact, something to also note is that the areas of the world where fertility rates are really high, and they're mainly in the African continent, people are still squatting to release. And so what that means is that they're detoxing and cleansing their bodies properly on a daily basis. So what actually happens? Why is this so important? When you're in the sitting position, or indeed the standing position, there is a muscle that's holding a kink in the bottom part of your descending colon. And that kink is there specifically to hold waste matter in until it's ready to release. But what happens is that we go to the toilet on a seated toilet, that muscle doesn't release. People end up pushing, straining, causing all sorts of problems in their bowel, literally pushing their bowel outside them, is what happens with hemorrhoids, and yes, having a very difficult time going to the loo. If we simulate the squat position using a bathroom footrest, something that's just 22 to 24 centimeters high, this whole situation changes for the better, because you're simulating the squat position. that muscle releases, the colon straightens, and your bowel movements are like you've never before experienced. So all of a sudden, your movements are quick, they're easy, and they're effective. They feel complete. So this, as I said, is one of the first things I get clients to do when they're on the journey to conceive and have a child, because you want your abdominal environment to be optimal, to be clean, when you're growing a baby in there. And this is how we were designed to do it. And when we do this daily, it has an ongoing effect for the health of your entire body. So using a bathroom footrest is exceptionally important. And once you start using it, within a couple of days, it'll become very familiar. You know, at first it'll feel unfamiliar, but within a few days it'll become familiar. And within a couple of weeks, you will wonder how and why you never knew this before, and it will completely overturn your bathroom time for the better. So I've had clients who've gone from sitting on a toilet for 60 minutes to a minute or two, 30 minutes to 30 seconds, and ultimately I ended up creating a bathroom footrest product because I was so frustrated with my own bowel issues, which I cleared up after 20 years, and I spent 20 years looking for the remedy, and I did everything, and all the things I did were great, but they never completely resolved the problem. And within a couple of months of using a bathroom footrest, I have never had a problem since. So I'm a big advocate for getting into the right position to release, and I'm a very big advocate for this in terms of fertility. Apart from creating a clean environment, you also may experience, which is very common, pregnancy constipation. This will help there. And once you have your child and you've given birth, feedback from some of my customers and clients has been that the bathroom footrest has been a godsend. And you can obviously understand why when people have gone through giving birth. We're very delicate down there, so the bathroom footrest is exceptionally helpful. Proper releasing from the bowel also helps to release toxins, chemicals and hormones that are floating through the body, going through your system. If we don't release properly, the hormones from the pill, even after months or years, might be still being regurgitated through your system. Hormones from meat or dairy may be still being recycled through your system. So apart from using the bathroom footrest, I really want to push that you need to be eating a lot of fiber. So a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables will help to detox your system very, very effectively. So another case study for you. This is Jane. She was in her late 30s and she had been on the journey for several years to become pregnant, and was another person who was not in a great emotional state when we connected. And this was very reflected in her body actually, because her abdomen was rigid and very inflexible, and to the touch it was easy to see that her body, that the stress had taken a toll. And you know, where we store our emotions is in the gut, so this is the area that takes the brunt of that emotional turmoil. We started doing the work to conceive, a lot of massage, a lot of cleansing, and like most clients, she took to this because apart from anything else, it made sense to her, and she understood the analogy of creating a fertile garden. And we need to create a fertile garden if we're going to grow exceptionally healthy fruit, vegetables, flowers, and we need to do the same if we're growing a child. And the body is very adaptable, the body is very forgiving, the body's intelligence wants to be in balance, the body wants to be healthy. So when we start creating the right conditions and the right environment, the body readapts back to its former health, and it can do so quite quickly. Anyway, in Jane's case, it only took a few weeks of focused spring cleaning, as I call it, and the womb and the body became the inviting garden so that she could go on to have their beautiful baby boy. So spring cleaning the baby's first room is a very big part of the work that I do with my clients. So more recently, I have gotten into hypnotherapy as a tool to help all clients, but I find it an exceptional tool in terms of explaining the unexplained when it comes to delays to fertility and, of course, unexplained infertility. And I've done a lot of learning in my 20 years as a therapist, and I've used a lot of modalities, but I must admit that this is the most powerful way to uncover the root cause and the reason that somebody is not becoming pregnant, to give them the why very, very quickly. And with this particular type of hypnosis, it's called rapid transformational therapy, we uncover whatever the limiting beliefs or fears that a woman may be carrying, that may be blocking her fertile health, and we replace that with new beliefs that she can and she will become pregnant easily and quickly. And it's so effective that many clients, my own, my colleagues around the world, they conceive sometimes within their next cycle, maybe 2 cycles. For others, depending on what the underlying reason is, it may take a few months for things to rebalance, but it is an incredible tool. It's an incredible fertility tool. And because science has proven that our beliefs affect our biology, it also, it makes a lot of sense. So just to give you a bit of an understanding, I call it the secret medicine, just to give you a bit of an understanding as to what are the subconscious fears, what types of fears or beliefs people can be carrying that are affecting their ability to conceive. And the first, it's going to seem very obvious even though we don't talk about it very much, but it's the fear of actually becoming pregnant. So consider this. Most women in the Western world have spent a lifetime, years, decades, priming their bodies to avoid pregnancy. It happens when we're teenagers. Often as soon as we get the first boyfriend or we start menstruating, we get the warnings not to have sex, not to become pregnant. And sometimes those warnings are very forceful. And then, we go out into the world and we want a life, we want a career, we want to have fun, and we take on that job ourselves, telling ourselves not to become pregnant, and we medicate not to become pregnant. All of this is fine. This is just how life plays out, and that's perfect. However, when we get to the time, and sometimes again it could be years or decades later, that we're ready, everything's aligned, everything's in the right place for us to become pregnant, this conditioning is still playing out, whether we realize it or not. And so we have to recondition the mind to know that pregnancy is something that we now want. Pregnancy is something that's going to bring us joy and pleasure. Because what we've been telling our minds and our bodies up until now is pregnancy is something that's going to bring us pain. And we don't want it. And it's not a good thing. The other thing is past pregnancy scares. I had one myself, almost 30 years ago at the age of 19. And it was not fun, I can tell you. For 5 months, my body went into a phantom pregnancy state. I was seeing and feeling all the pregnancy symptoms, including a belly that was getting bigger. It wasn't until I told somebody, I confided in somebody, that situation turned around and my period came back, and I was beyond relieved. Now, most women that I connect with, even friends, we've all had past pregnancy scares, and in that moment we're really telling our body that pregnancy is a fearful thing, telling our mind that, and then when it turns out that the scare is not real, there's such relief at not becoming pregnant. And these conditionings in the mind need to be overturned. There's also the fear of giving birth. Don't need to share too much on that, but we just look at the horrific depictions on television and film. And because we are so suggestible, human beings are so suggestible, the mind's so suggestible, there will be a lot of women, and we've come across them, who decided, early on in life that they'll never put themselves through that. And totally understandable as well, but it, is sabotaging a lot of people's ability to become pregnant when they do feel they are ready. past traumatic birth. It could be your own. It could be, you know, when you came into the world, your birth might have been traumatic. There may be something you decided back then. There may be something that you heard back then that's affecting your ability to conceive now. Also, there'll be women who have experienced, you know, a birth that was difficult for them and for their child, and so the next birth, they're subconsciously carrying that trauma, whether they know it or not. Something I come up with a lot with my clients of late in the last year is fear of rejection. People who've had childhoods where they were rejected by their parents for whatever reason, and they have this fear of rejection playing out in all areas of their life, but now also playing out in their desire to conceive. Fear that the child will reject them, or fear that they will reject the child. There's also fears around loss. Again, very understandable. Of course, if somebody's already had a miscarriage, or indeed more than one, it gets very, very difficult to believe that it can happen, and that is a conscious fear and a subconscious fear. There's also the fear around loss as soon as somebody conceives. So in the Western culture, we are guided to think that within the first 3 months, there's a high chance of losing this pregnancy. And so we don't tell people, we don't celebrate, we keep it quiet, and we're waiting for this potential to happen because it's an unknown. And so there's this subconscious fear that's stopping people actually becoming pregnant, that if they do, that they may miscarry. Now, why is this also important? Because our mind's job on this planet is to keep us alive and keep us away from pain. And if the mind believes that becoming pregnant will cause pain, it will prevent us from becoming pregnant. That is its job. So using this, and in particular this method of hypnotherapy, we can find what the block is and we can overturn it, we can release it, overturn it, and reprogram the mind for the knowing that becoming pregnant is a wonderful thing for us. It's going to bring pleasure, it's going to bring joy, it's going to bring so much happiness, and we really need to do that to move forward, as in the case of Anna, another client who couldn't get pregnant for quite some time. She was quite young, healthy. However, it turned out, and we discovered this in a session, that she'd held a childhood belief that it was not safe for her to be pregnant. And this came from when she was 4 years old. She was out with her mum and she saw a pregnant woman. And for whatever reason, later that day, she decided that it would be very funny to pop a pillow up her jumper and pretend to be pregnant. Now, we've no idea, and we'll never know what was going on for her mother in this moment, but her mother reacted very badly. You know, she was quite angry, and she really admonished the 4-year-old Anna and told her never to do that again. And she was quite forceful about that. So in that moment, Anna decided that it was not safe for her to become pregnant ever. And that's what the child mind does. It decides these things, and it's for life. It is not safe. So thankfully, we uncovered this belief, this situation, and we released it, overcame it, and reprogrammed her mind and her body to believe that it's safe, pleasurable, and now absolutely exciting for her to be pregnant soon, which is what happened. And she went on to have her little girl. So we don't know what we decided as a child about pregnancy very often, and you know, I see this with clients every day. The loss of a sibling when they were very young has impacted their ability to conceive. A trauma, you know, somebody being in a very traumatic situation when they were a very helpless baby has been stopping people conceiving. It goes on, but often it's not necessarily in the body at all, but it is in the mind. So with this type of therapy, and this therapy has been around for 30 years, but it's only been shared in the last 3. It was developed by a woman called Marissa Peer, and she has been therapist to British royalty, Hollywood stars, you know, so many people that we know well in the world. She has seen them with her methodology, and also she has had so much success over, you know, the past 20 or more years with fertility. She's actually written a book on this methodology for fertility, which is why I use it today. So with this therapy, we can solve the mystery as to what is stopping conception, and this is such an exceptional tool when it comes to unexplained infertility. We've got to find out the why, and when we find out the why, we can remove those blocks and delays completely. We then work with you to reprogram the mind and the body for phenomenal fertility and create a new belief that you can and you will carry your baby easily, healthily for full term. So ultimately it just dramatically improves your ability to conceive naturally and quickly. And just want to also mention that this methodology, this hypnotherapy, is fantastic as well for those who are choosing to go down the IVF path, or indeed for whatever reason are having an embryo transplant. We can also use this methodology to remove any blocks to those being successful. So that also is fantastic to know. The next step that I work with clients is around releasing fear and allowing yourself to expect the best, because for whatever reason, and it's just so heightened with pregnancy, but we are so set up to not get our hopes up and to expect the worst, if anything. So I find that with pregnancy, and this is through seeing many clients, that we are just primed for fear. You know, fear that we've left it too late, that we're too old, that we're not enough, that we're not healthy enough, that we don't have enough eggs, they're not of good enough quality, and that if we don't become pregnant super fast, that something is terribly wrong. And then, of course, we go into the fear that it may not happen for us, ever. And so, by the time people come to work with me, they're often in a state of expecting the worst. They expect problems more than they expect a child, and that is having a very dramatic impact on their physical bodies as well. So it's not just an emotional or mental issue, it's very much a physical issue. Because in this case, fear is a contraceptive. When we're in fear, we go into fight or flight. And we are not designed to procreate when we are in fear or stress. This is a time to literally do what we need to do to survive. So we need to fight, flight, or flee. And the hormones that assist with that are adrenaline and cortisol. And when those hormones are coursing through the body, the heart rate increases, blood is pumped to the limbs so that we can literally survive a dangerous situation and, you know, live another day. However, what happens here is that when we're in fear or stress, the reproductive organs become redundant. They are not relevant to survival, and again, they receive no energy. So, if we're honest, we can see that today in the Western world, most human beings are living in constant states of stress. They're stressed about their jobs, about not having enough money, about maybe meeting their mortgage, stuff going on in their relationships, stuff at work, bosses, staff, illness. On top of that, you know, listening to the news will put you in a state of stress, you know, world unrest, the state of planet. All of this is happening well before we come to wanting to have a child. But then when you step into wanting to create a baby, just fear goes into overdrive, and it compounds the infertility problem even more. Because when we have the fight or flight hormones coursing through the body is not designed to conceive. And just a quick run through of just some fears that people face when they're on this path, and these are really conscious fears. Age. More of us are choosing to have children later in life. That's fine, but it is bringing up a lot of fear around age. Fears of those around you, family, friends, the medical profession. Just everyone's got a sorrow story, a fear story to share, and people are so going into fear that even women in their late 20s and early 30s, they're expecting to use IVF when they're ready to have a child, and they're also freezing their eggs. And then there's diagnosis fear. If you receive an unexplained infertility diagnosis, if you receive any sort of diagnosis, if somebody puts in your mind that you are too old, it's another diagnosis. And the fear is, I am infertile. And because of how the mind works, it is very difficult to conceive when you have the belief, I am infertile. Because the mind cannot hold conflicting beliefs at the same time. And so, how do we overcome this? I work with my clients through what I call doing to conceive. And again, research has shown that our brains can only focus on one thing at a time. But when we are in the act of doing, fear fades away. When we're literally taking action steps daily towards preparing for pregnancy, it leads to confidence and the fear just dissipates. And again, this is how your brain works. So to overcome fear or stress, we need to take clear, decisive, intelligent action daily. Do things that make sense to prepare the mind and the body for pregnancy. And so that your mind starts to focus on what you want. And because you're taking action steps, it's so much easier for your mind to focus on what you want. You start to see a positive outcome. And that helps us immensely because it stops the hormones of stress happening as well. Because you're not focusing on what you don't want. And so to release fear and expect the best, doing to conceive, we get into spring cleaning the baby's first room. I encourage all my clients to have this hypnotherapy session to uncover the root cause of that delay ASAP. Once you have knowledge, that is power. And once you have this knowledge, you can actually overcome it and reprogram the body and the mind for phenomenal fertility. When we start doing to conceive, our mindset changes because our actions have changed and we start to get new outcomes in how we physically feel, how we mentally feel, how we emotionally feel. And of course, that new outcome will lead us to conceiving easier and more quickly. And just a last little case study for you, story of Kate, who it was through a session that she became aware that the block that was stopping her conceiving, again more of a physical block than an emotional block, was when she was a teenager. She was very almost terrorized by her mother not to become pregnant and really threatened that she would be abandoned, cast out of the family should that ever happen. Now, for a young kid or a teenager, it is terrifying to be rejected and abandoned, and that causes a whole set of issues for young people. However, in Kate's case, what it meant, it really impacted her life actually, because she was terrified of having sex, so she didn't have sex until she was in her mid-20s, because she was terrified of becoming pregnant. She thought she would be that person. And now she was later in life, in her early 30s, and she was ready to have a family. She was married, she was all set to go, but it just wasn't happening. And this terror that had been put in her by her mum, but it's, her mum was very enthusiastic with that terror, but just really think about it. Everything around you, your school, your teachers, society, the media, as if everything is telling you when you're a young kid, don't get pregnant. And it's the worst thing that could happen to you, But anyway, we discovered this fear. She remembered her mother, obviously, being like this and putting all that heavy emotional and mental stuff on her. However, what she didn't realize is that she had really taken it on and that it was living in her system and stopping her. It was a block that was stopping her becoming pregnant. So, knowledge of this fear ended that struggle, and really consciously knowing that that was the problem, she had just a renewed belief in her ability to become pregnant. And that happened pretty soon after. Within a couple of months, she went on to conceive her little girl. So knowledge is power, and through this hypnosis methodology we can find out so much about the why, but also we can release the fear of not becoming pregnant, and recondition mind and body to become pregnant soon and to have a positive outlook and a positive expectation. So I want to give you some practical steps that you can take immediately to overcome an unexplained infertility opinion, and that will bring you closer than ever and just more positive and with more hope to having your baby than ever before. So number one, I really urge you to reject that diagnosis, to see it for what it is. It is an opinion, not a truth. And again, were you to go to a different medical practitioner, you will be given very different advice, and a very different approach will be taken to find the cause and not just treat the symptom. Doing to conceive. There is so much that we can do to prepare our body for pregnancy, having a healthy birth, having a healthy baby, and even having a healthy birth. So self-massage is amazing. You know, starting today, at the end of every shower, you could take 5 minutes, a little bit of coconut oil, and just massage around your reproductive organs. You don't even need to know what you're doing. Your body intuitively knows how to touch itself, and just massage all around your lower abdomen. Just 5 minutes every day. And as you do it, just be conscious that you're giving energy to your reproductive organs. Just see them in your mind's eye becoming alive. See that organ just sparking with life force. And because energy flows where attention goes, and also through the physical work, you are reactivating the lymph system in this area. You're also reactivating and getting circulation to happen. So bringing blood, life force, oxygen to your reproductive organs. The next is to spring clean your baby's first room. Drink 2 liters of water every single day, add a pinch of salt. Start hydrating the body but also cleansing the body. Use a bathroom footrest every single day. And pretty soon you will wonder how you ever lived life without it. I highly recommend colonics if you're into that. Go and have a series of 3 colonics. Clean out the digestive system. Of the utmost importance, have a nutrient-rich diet. So, live foods, fruits, vegetables, eat in color, eat beautiful-looking food, less of the meat, less wheat, less dairy. In fact, if you can cut out those things for a while, even better. The most healing diet on the planet is fruits, vegetables, beans, nuts and seeds, and lots of water. The other thing that you could do is start working with intermittent fasting or any type of fasting. Don't have too much time to go into it here, but it is very, it is one of the easiest ways to rejuvenate and regenerate this body of ours is through fasting, and it's something, again, that's very lost from our culture. But were you even to give yourself a window pretty much daily of 12 to 14 hours where you don't eat, and that includes your sleeping at night, so 8 hours sleeping, and then just don't eat for a few hours when you get up in the morning. In fact, something I do intermittent fasting, but the other thing I do is I don't eat until I've had a bowel movement. I want to empty my body before I eat. So that's another way of achieving a bit more fasting in your body. So look up intermittent fasting, and that will be really, really interesting for you and really helpful in terms of rejuvenating the entire body and the reproductive system. And believe to conceive. You know, once you start focusing on what you want, everything starts to change. But doing to conceive will help you to believe to conceive. So that is really, really important. Again, getting a hypnosis session is amazing for finding out the why, but also amazing for reconditioning the mind and the body to believe that you can conceive and will do soon. Mindset, focus on the best, focus on the outcome that you want. See yourself with your baby, with your family. What the mind believes, it can conceive. So align your mindset with the outcome that you want and use the tools that work for you to overcome a negative mindset. And remember, again, when we change from a positive negative expectation to a positive expectation, our chances of conceiving rise from 20 to 50%, just from having a positive belief and a positive expectation. 5 quick things you can do today. Hydrate. Drink 2 liters of water every single day with a pinch of salt. We need hydration for hormones to get to where they need to go in the body, for every single cell in your body to be hydrated. A baby starts out at almost, I think it's 98% water, and over time that comes down to about 80%, and when they become a human being they're around 75%. So really important to hydrate. We need hydration for fertility. Proper elimination. Use bathroom footrest every single day. It will change your life, and it will help to heal your gut. It will help to heal a lot of other health conditions in the body, and also our immune system lives in the gut. We need it to be clean for our immunity to work well, and also most of our healthy bacteria live in the gut, so we need this environment to be cleaned out daily. Live foods. Eat a nutrient and fiber-rich diet. Stop eating denatured foods. Focus on live foods. If you want to make a live body, focus on eating live foods. Eat them daily. Positive mindset. Have an RTT session. Listen to the audio. Decide that your body is healing and will heal itself. And decide that you are creating your baby, and nothing, no one is going to stop you. So what can you do to support that? And lastly, sex in the right position. We need to be having sex in the doggy style position when we want to conceive easily. Why? Because it allows the man to deposit the sperm next to the cervix. So think of it as DIY IUI, doggy style sex, rear entry sex. And this, if you look at the animal kingdom, most animals are having rear entry sex when they are procreating. And we are the human animal, and let's use this wisdom to help us conceive easier, because when you deposit the sperm next to the cervix, the sperm doesn't have to swim so far. It doesn't have to lose all its energy trying to get to the cervix, which means it has more energy to break through the egg and create your baby and fertilize your baby. So doggy style sex, and enjoy it, of course. So that's it from me, reclaimyourfertility.com. If you have any questions, you're welcome to email namara@reclaimyourfertility.com. Love to speak with you if you would like any assistance on your fertility journey, or indeed you just have any questions, do feel free to get in touch. And just a quick note, fertility coaching, it's there for you if you want it, if you want to support this journey in your life. Right now you've got new ideas just from watching this seminar, and it gives you something else. It gives you accountability so that you stay focused, and you have the help and support to stay focused on creating your baby and not losing sight of your vision to create your family. And with the Reclaim Your Fertility offering, I do a 6 weeks program online where we have 3 hypnosis sessions, an online program that you go through week by week, live coaching sessions twice a week, private Facebook group so you can connect with other people who are on this incredible journey with you to reclaim their fertility and overcome all the fears that surround it, and indeed all the negativity that surrounds it. So that is actually a positive Facebook group where we focus on what we want. There's also the possibility to do a mini program where there's 2 hypnosis sessions and a self-guided program. Or indeed you're welcome to have 1 2-hour hypnotherapy session with me if you just want to uncover and transform what the current blocker delay to pregnancy is. And lastly, I'm currently writing a book. It's called Doing to Conceive, and that is about 4 months away from completion. So Again, if you'd like to connect, you're welcome to email me, or indeed you are welcome, if you're serious about finding out more, to book a free breakthrough call with me, and that's 45 minutes to see if any of these options are for you. And that you can find on the reclaimyourfertility.com website. So thank you so much again for tuning in. It's been fantastic to share this all with you, and I'm looking forward to hearing how you go taking on what I've shared today. And yeah, I really want to wish you all the best with your fertility, baby and family journey.